Hello and welcome to today's live AM language video. I'm just looking at my camera. I'm just wondering if my camera's okay. I think it looks a little bit fuzzy. Let me just check. Okay, yeah, that's better. I think there was some dirt on the lens of the camera. Hi guys, welcome to today's live video lesson on the modal verb should. We are going to have a look at this. Should is a modal verb. It can be difficult to know how to use, and we can use it in different contexts as well. So there's lots of things to look at today. Stefano says, good afternoon, dear teacher. Good afternoon, Stefano. Welcome to today's live lesson. Leadina, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. I look forward to your contribution. The two of you are always good with your answers. So I look forward to the answers you end up coming up with today. I'm just going to share the lesson, and we can then wait for some more people to join, and then we'll begin. If you guys have any questions about should, if you have seen some examples that you yourself are you're not sure, you don't know, please share it with me. Please share it with me. Okay. Hopefully everyone's internet is working. I know that at this time the internet can be a little bit unstable at times, so hopefully the internet works well enough for you guys. So yeah, it's a lovely day, and it's hot as always. So let's just start off by making sure we understand the basics. Okay, first of all, what is should? I think that's a good starting point. It's important to know that should, when we talk about should, we're talking maybe about a probability. When we're talking about a future, for example, if we're talking about a future, a conditional, and should is also when it comes to giving advice. Advice. Okay. Irina says, hi, Irina. Welcome to today's lesson. Lovely to see you here. So that's the important thing. Should is talking about either a probability, or should is advice. Those are the two things we need to know. So just to give you an example, if we're talking about a probability, we would say, let's say it should be warmer tomorrow. Okay, so here I'm talking about a future, and I'm saying it should be warmer tomorrow. It's a probability. What is the probability? If I were to put a percentage on it, it would be maybe between 70 and 75%. So there's a good chance that it will be warmer tomorrow. If it's advice, then I would say something like, okay, you should check with your teacher before, you should check with your teacher. So if you use it like this, you can see here that you're using it as advice. Now, there's certain things we need to know, and this goes for most modal verbs. Should, okay, plus your verb in the present. Simple or the present perfect. Those are your two options when you're using a modal verb. Should. I cannot use the infinitive. I cannot say should to, for example. I'm not going to be able to say that, so I need to use, and I can't say should gone, should been, should caught. I can't say that. So I can't use the past simple verbs, and I can't use the second or third form. I can only use the first form of a verb, and that's why I have to go with should and then my actual word. Evelina, good afternoon. Welcome to today's lesson. So I can write in the present using a present simple. I can say, for instance, you should ask him. Okay, so you should ask him. I've got my verb ask. And if I want to talk about the past, you should have asked him. Of course, the important thing in this case is the action didn't happen. So we can see that if I want to talk about the present, I use should plus a present simple. If I want to talk about the past, I then need to use should plus present perfect. So that's how I'm going to talk about the past, okay? So let me just give you some more examples. And you guys, and then I'm going to open this up to an activity where you guys can tell me what, if I'm talking about the present, the future, or the past, okay? And I'm going to give you some examples. Let's start off with present, okay? So in the present, I could say, okay, you should try a different channel. Okay, so this is obviously talking about the present, and this is either a suggestion or advice. Advice. Come on, there we go. There. Another example. Ooh, you should try this wine. It's delicious. Okay, so there we go. Delicious. Okay, so again, we're talking about the present, and we can see that this is talking about either advice or suggestion, probably more suggestion in this case. Okay, so those are the examples for the present. If I want to use a negative, then I could say, ooh, you shouldn't order the soup. It's not good. Okay, so here again, this is the present, and we can see that this is talking about advice or suggestion. So that is the important thing. We know that in the present simple, if we use the positive or the negative, you're talking about the present, and we're then talking about advice or suggestion. Okay, now let's look at the future before we look at the past. Let's now look at the future. Okay, here we could say things like, okay, the plane should leave on time. Okay, so here we're talking about a future time, so the time of when the plane is leaving, and this is a probability. Okay, so here we're talking about an expectation. We're saying that we think that the plane will leave on time. So future time in terms of the context and probability. In terms of the structure, it's still a present simple, but we're talking about a future time, which is more important. So it's still a present simple in terms of grammar, but it's talking about a future time, and we're saying this is a probability. If we're going to use a negative, we could say they shouldn't beat Man United because they are not a good team. So here we're talking again, we're talking about football, we're talking about a future result. So here we've got the negative, it's a present simple in terms of its grammar. It's talking about a future time and it's a prediction as well. And we're talking about probability as well. Okay, so those are the examples to begin with. I am now going to write some more sentences and I want you guys to try and tell me what the grammar is. Now, the grammar here doesn't change. It's going to be present simple, but I want you to tell me if you think it's talking about a future time or a present time. And I want you to tell me if it's talking about a probability or if it's trying to give advice or suggestion, because that's the beginning. That's what we need to know. Okay, let's go for this. Okay, you should try the fish of the day. Okay, so this is sentence one. Let's see what you guys come out with. Okay, so sentence one is you should try the fish of the day. So tell me what you think. Is it talking about the present? The context is you're at the restaurant, okay, and you're talking to the waiter. And the waiter tells you, you should try the fish of the day. You should try the fish of the day. Okay, so do you think he's talking about a future or do you think they are talking about a present time? And present context. Good. Well done, Stefano. And now tell me, do you think this is a probability or do you think this is more about giving advice, suggestion? Well done, guys. Off to a great start. Yeah, this is a suggestion because we can kind of gather this is from a waiter and the waiter is suggesting you should try the fish. Great. Well done. Let's try another one. Okay. Good. Well done, Stefano. Well done. Okay. Okay, the wedding should go well. As long as it doesn't rain. Okay, so we've got this sentence here. The wedding should go well as long as it doesn't rain. The wedding should go well as long as it doesn't rain. Just to give you extra context, there's a wedding and future probability. Well done, Stefano. Let's see if Leodina or Irina or anyone else watching agrees with you. Do they agree with you? Yes, they do. Excellent. Well done, guys. Off to a fantastic start. Now, let's look at the next one. One more. You shouldn't talk to her like that. You shouldn't talk to her like that. What do you think? Is this present advice? Is this future advice? Is this a probability? What do you think? So maybe you and this person keep present advice. Okay, Leondina, does Stefano agree with you? Or does anyone else want to come in, give their idea? Excellent, well done. Now, guys, if you want to change this to the future, it's quite simple. All you need to do is use this term in the future. You shouldn't talk to her like that. And that's how you can change the time of the sentence. You can just put the time marker at the beginning. In the future, you shouldn't talk to her like that. Well done, guys. Off to a fantastic start. Now let's look at the past. How do you use should when you're talking about the past? Okay, so you might remember that I said you need should plus have the present perfect. So, for example, you can say, so the train shouldn't have been late, but there was an accident. on the, there was an accident at one of the stations. Okay. What we have here is we've got your modal verb should or shouldn't plus the present perfect. And this means we're talking about a past time. Now, what the thing that we need to know is if we use should or shouldn't, does it mean the action happened or the action didn't happen? In this case, if you use shouldn't, the train shouldn't have been late. It means the train was late. If we say, for example, you should have been you should have scored, for example, you should have scored, it means the person didn't score. Okay, so this is the important thing. We need to know what the context is talking about, and I think the context when we talk about should in the past is usually the harder thing. We're talking about, did it happen or did it not happen? That's the question. And then we also need to see here that there's an expectation involved, and we will look at that. So if we say he should have scored, the expectation was that we thought he was going to score. And if we say the train shouldn't have been late, there was an expectation that the train was going to be on time. So let's see how we go, okay? I'd like you guys to let me know what your answer is. So example 1. Okay, so Jane should have arrived on time. She should arrive on time. Okay, so we've got Jane should have arrived on time. So option 1A, Jane was on time. Option 2, Jane was not on time. So is the answer A or B? Jane should have arrived on time. Was Jane on A? Option A, Jane was on time, or B, Jane was not on time. So those are your two options. Does this mean A or does this mean B? Leodina, B. Well done. Correct. That's exactly it. Let's look again. Option 2. Well done, Evelina. Correct. B. Okay. Okay, we've got this sentence. We shouldn't have lost the money, but we'll try and replace it. Now here you've got shouldn't have, and then the second part is we'll try and replace it. Focus on the first, not the second. Focus on shouldn't, not will. So A. So A, the money is missing, meaning it's not there. Missing is lost. Or B, they have the money. So is it A or B? Just remember, guys, if something is missing, it means it is lost, okay? Stefano says, it's the same grammar point as when you taught us about use of might in past. She might have left him if she only knew the truth. The action didn't happen. Yeah, Well done, Stefano. Very good. I'm glad that you remember that particular lesson. So well done. And Leonardina, in this context, well done. It's A. Perfect. Brilliant. Well done, guys. Excellent stuff. Okay, so we've looked at how we can use it in the present. We've looked at it, how we can use in the future, and we've looked at how we can use it in the past. Now, how do we use it in a conditional? This is where things can begin to become a little bit more complicated. We'll start off simply, and then we will finish off with something a little bit more difficult by the end. So simply put, let's put it this way. If we can use it, think about orders, like when you're ordering something on Amazon, for example. So if you order today, you should get it by next Monday. So what we can see here is this is a conditional. You've got if plus present simple plus should. Okay, so this has all the markings of what we would call a first conditional, except instead of will, we've got should. So it has the same grammar structure as the first conditional. And what you will see, because we are talking about a future, we are talking about a probability. So this is when you can expect your delivery to arrive. Now, if we want to use the negative, we could say, if you don't study, sorry, okay, so if you don't study, you shouldn't expect to pass the exam. Now, this is quite an interesting one. I've been a little bit naughty here. So again, it's a first conditional. However, I've used the negative. But this has two meanings. One, this sounds like advice. You're saying if you don't study, you shouldn't expect to pass the exam. This is both advice and probability. It's both in one. And this is how you can use it as both advice and probability. If you don't study, you shouldn't expect to pass the exam. You're saying this is advice, meaning you should study. And two, you're saying if you don't study, you probably won't pass the exam. So this is another example. Okay, I'll give you one more and then we'll go into another exercise. Okay, let's go with this. If, let's say it's a second conditional now. So what should you do if, well, actually, no, this is going to be, let's go with this. Okay. If I won the lottery, no, I'm not going to use the second conditional. I've changed my mind. I think we're not going to use it how we normally use it. We can use it, but I want to concentrate more on the normal questions. So, for instance, what should you do if you see someone, hurt in the streets, So we can use it when creating our questions. What should you do? You will notice that when we create this, it's still a first conditional. So you've got what or how, okay, plus should, plus present simple, plus if, plus present simple. What we're doing here is with this, we're saying, what should you do? This is an interesting one whereby you're talking about the moral choice. What is the right thing to do? Now, this is another type of meaning. Its closest thing would be advice. But what we're really talking about here, you're talking about what is right and what is wrong. So this has a moral meaning, and we use the modal verb should a lot to talk about the moral meanings of what should or shouldn't you do. For example, or the environment. So what should you do if you get the virus? You should stay inside. So it's advice, but with a moral meaning to it. So let's now go into our activity, and you guys are going to tell me what are we looking at here. Okay, tell me the type of, now it's all going to be first conditionals, but you're going to tell me about the meaning, and I'm going to give you the choice of the meaning as well. So option one. Option one. If you order now, you should be able to make the film at 9. Okay, so the sentence is, if you order now, you should be able to make the film. So is it A, is it advice? B, is it probability? Was it C, suggestion with a probability or a probable outcome? Okay, so what do you guys think? Is it A, advice? Is it B, just a probability? Or is it C, it's a suggestion with a probability attached? Okay, Leondina and Stefano, if you put your two answers together, okay, it is a probability. If you order now, you should be able to make the film. So yeah, there's a probability there. However, the first bit with if you order now, there is a suggestion that you should order now. So if you put B, well done, you get half a mark. For 100%, put down C, because the first part of that clause is a suggestion in a certain context. That is if it's coming from a waiter. However, B is not wrong. The primary use of should here is a probability. So maybe I'm being unfair. I think I'm being unfair, actually. No, give yourself a point. You put down B, and the way should is being used here is actually probability. The whole context is suggestion and probability. But the way should, and the fact we are looking at should, we should just concentrate on that. So no, you guys are right. I was being unfair. B is the correct answer. Okay, good. Well done. We're off to a good start. Let's go round 2. Okay, let's look at okay, guys, what do you think? Are you talking about a probability here? If you don't tell her, you shouldn't expect her to understand. So is it A? Is it, are we saying, is it advice? B? B, is it advice, but with probability attached? Stefano, future advice. It is advice, and it's talking about I hadn't quite finished actually what I was going to write, but you kind of beat me to it. It's advice, or is it advice with a future probability meaning attached? So if you don't tell her now, you shouldn't expect her to understand. So is it just advice, or is it advice where there's also some future probability attached to it? Let's see what you guys think. Sorry, teacher. No, don't worry about that, Stefano. It's good that you're quick. So is this sentence just advice, or is it advice as well as having a future probability in terms of its meaning attached to it? Advice and probability, yeah. And that's what we use a lot with this. We would say, okay, I'm going to give you some advice, but I'm going to give you a warning of what I think is going to happen if you don't follow my advice. And that is why this is advice with a bit of probability thrown in. Well done, guys. Okay, let's look at the last one over here. And for this one, I'm going to say, okay. What should you do if you're stuck in a car that has crashed into a lake? Okay, so we've got what should you do if you are stuck in a car that has crashed into a lake? Into a lake. So the guy they were driving, and the car crashed, and it's now in a lake. You should get out as fast as possible. My question here is, A, this is hypothetical advice, or B, this is advice in the present because the car is in the lake. So this is important. Is it A or B? Is this hypothetical advice, or is this advice in the present because the car is in the lake? This is a real situation in the present. So what do you guys think? Is it A or B? A or B? Hypothetical advice in the future. You don't necessarily need to put the future part in. It's because it might not necessarily be the future, but it is hypothetical advice. There's certain questions we can ask that may never obviously be in the future. They may never happen. It's a possible future, I suppose. So you could say hypothetical advice in a possible future scenario, for example. Good, well done, guys. Now, I'm going to introduce you to the last thing. Now, you know that you can write sentence conditional with if. So, for example, if you get lost, call me, okay? Now here, this is a zero conditional. And you know that you can use if. You can use should, and you can use should instead of if. So you can do this. Should you get lost, call me. This has the same meaning. And what I'm doing is I'm just replacing if with should. So, for example, another one. You can't find the place, use Google Maps. And I can change this to, should you not be able to find the place, use Google Maps. Now, what can you see that I'm doing here that's a little bit different? Okay. Here we can say, see, I can say, if you can't find the place. Instead of should you, one of the options I can do is instead of can't, I can say, so if I write, if you can't find the place, okay? What I'm writing here is, should you not be able to? This is because I'm not going to say, should you, instead of saying, should you can't, I'm not going to say that. So if you want, you can say, should you not be able to, which is why it's longer and it's a bit harder to do. Stefan will say, I usually find this last use of should in a very formal register, correct? Okay, it is often used in the formal register. It's often used in professional work, but it doesn't mean you can't use it in a social context. It doesn't mean you can't use it informally. However, the language is definitely a little bit more formal. But like I said, it doesn't mean you can't use it socially. You can. But the structure definitely is more formal, without question. So let's look at the task. The task is this. I'm going to write a question using if, and you guys need to change it to using should. Just remember, if I say if you can't, you need to change it to should you not be able to. And that's the important thing. So let's have a go. So if your phone breaks, you can buy a cheap phone from one of the corner stores. If your phone breaks, you can buy a cheap phone from one of the corner stores. Now, what I would say here is I just want to also tell you if you use should, okay, should your phone, for example, don't add the S on breaks. Just leave it as break. When we use this term, usually the verb, it's always going to be in its, we're not going to add the S onto the verb. So just leave it as break. So let's see what you guys do. Turn this, change the sentence into should. Okay. Let's see what you guys come out with. And then we'll do one more, and that takes us to just about the end of the lesson as well. Should your phone break? Okay, let's see if other people agree with you. See what Leondina or someone else might say. These are your two options. Should your phone break, you can buy a cheap phone from one of the corner stores. Yes, well done. And that's correct. Leondina, well done. I didn't tell you guys this properly before, but just to give you more examples, okay? Should the TV not work? If the TV doesn't, what's it going to write? I just want to give you another example of this. So I put if the phone breaks, should the phone break? Okay. If the window cracks, should the window the window crack? This is a common thing, okay? When you use if, like if the window breaks, if the door cracks, if the ceiling chips, all these sort of words. If you use if, then you're going to add the s onto the verb. If you use should, the verb is not going to have an s on the end, okay? So should the window crack, should the phone break, that's going to be fairly normal. Okay, good. Well done, guys. So I've got a few more minutes. Let's just see what you guys do with this sentence. Okay, let's see what you guys do. We're just going to have a little look at this verb usage. Okay, so should the... Okay, so Stefano says, OT, was I right when I said before it's the same topic as when you taught us? It's the same topic when you use taught us? Sorry, present context. Do you mean with might? Are you talking about your comment earlier with might? Because if you are, when it's to do with if something happened or if something didn't happen, then yes, there's a similarity. I tell you what, to make sure I understand, Stefano, can you give me an example of two sentences, just so I know exactly what your, just so I understand your question properly? Okay, so for example, should the ceiling, yes, but it's the same as when, or it's the same of when? It's the same as when, or it's the same of when? It's the same as when. If I've understood your question, it's the same as when. As or of. Ah, okay. Same as. Same as when. As is your answer to that one. So should the ceiling crack or cracks? So which one is it? Should the ceiling crack or should the ceiling cracks? That's the line that can happen in the wall or your ceiling above your head. That's the line. That line, when the paint and you start seeing a black line going down the wall or on the ceiling, that's called a crack. So should it be should the ceiling crack or should the ceiling cracks? Should the ceiling cracks? Okay, let's see if anyone else agrees with you. It's the same over here. I've got another question. So just to remind you guys, if you use should rather than if, you don't add the s onto the verb. You don't add the s onto the verb. So you can add the s onto the verb if you use if. In fact, you should add the, in most cases, you should do. Then you add the s. But if not, and you're using should, then yeah, Leondino, you are correct. Then it should be crack. It should be dry, for example. Now you will see here, I'm not using language like doesn't. I'm just going straight with your noun plus verb. So if you have should, okay, so you got should plus noun plus verb, no S. Okay, that's the structure. So I'm not talking about if you add doesn't, don't, or any of those other words. I'm just saying if you have should plus a noun plus a verb in a conditional, you don't add the S. So should the should paint dry? Should the wall crack? Should the door break? Okay, because I'm going with the structure should, noun, verb, I don't add the S. If I was going with if, then I would write if the paint dries, if the wall cracks, if the door breaks. So that's an important difference between using if and using should when you are writing a conditional. When you're writing conditionals and you're using should instead of if, and you're just going with should, noun, verb, when you use it with should, the verb does not have an S on the end, but you will have an S on the end with if. Okay, guys. So that's the lesson on should for today. If you've enjoyed this lesson, make sure you've liked make sure you like the video. And if you're new, subscribe to the channel and share the channel as well. Thank you so much. I hope this lesson was useful. I hope you were all able to follow. These sort of things can be difficult. Modal verbs are never the easiest bit of language to learn. But very well done to all of you. I think you did a really good job today. So well done, and thank you very much for participating. A special thank you to Leondina, Stefano, Evelina, and Irina for your participation in today's lesson. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, have a lovely evening. Enjoy yourselves. And I will be back tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock with, what is my lesson tomorrow? Because I've already forgotten what the lesson is going to be tomorrow. Film English, word building. Okay, so something fun. Okay, thank you, Leondina. Thank you, Irina. Thank you, Stefano. And thank you, Evelina. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great evening, and bye for now.